Hey guys, I'm Shantanu Dasi back again with another video for Analytics India magazine capturing everything that has been happening in the world of artificial intelligence. I have gathered a few stories, so let's just not waste any more time and jump right into our stories. Our first story is that the European Union is poised to set AI rules that would ban surveillance and scoring. So we have time and again talked about the European Union's robust policies against artificial intelligence, and here is a report suggesting that what might change in those policies to create a stricter and ethical artificial intelligence environment. So European Union is going to completely ban facial recognition, surveillance and ranking social behavior by companies, and if the companies fail to comply with these rules, they may face 4% of their global revenue as fine. So these points are expected to be in the European Union's proposals for their new artificial intelligence guidelines. The first is, of course, they cannot use to manipulate humans and their human behavior. They cannot exploit information about individuals or groups, and they cannot carry social scoring or for indiscriminate surveillance would all be banned in the European Union. The facial recognition systems deployed in a public settings would require authorizations by the government or the government authorities. Artificial intelligence applications which are considered to be high risk would be inspected before deployment to ensure if they are trained on unbiased data sets in a traceable way and with human oversight. There is going to be a strict oversight on services that could endanger people's lives, such as self-driving cars and remote surgeries, among others. Also, these AI applications will require to get a certificate, compliance certificate issued by the assessment bodies, and will be valid up to 5 years. So every 5 years they have to get a compliance certificate from a third party or the government authorities themselves. So these rules are equally going to apply for companies that are working all over the world, but if they want to conduct business in the European Union, they need to comply with these set of rules and regulations. Moving on to our next story is about data labeling company Scale AI, which is valued at 7.3 billion with its new funding. So Scale AI is a San Francisco based startup which curates and labels data for artificial intelligence firms to train their models. So the reason behind the boom of Scale AI is that it is one of handful of companies that are dealing with data preparation which is required to train AI systems. This is a huge process which requires tens of thousands of examples to be annotated with labels. That is why so many investors are trying to cash in on this AI boom and giving funding to firms like Scale AI, and rightfully so, because this company is currently on track to earn 100 million in revenue in a 12-month period. Moving on to our next story is highlighting everything that has been happening in Nvidia's GTC Spring 2021. So Nvidia kickstarted GTC with a tech expo, and there are some huge announcements that they have made regarding their technology. So the company has announced the launch of Ariel A100 AI on 5G, a product that combines both GPU and DPU on the same EGX Nvidia certified PCI card. And this card will support software-defined cloud-native workloads. And research reports are indicating that this new AI on 5G will drive in excess of 10 trillion of economic value by the year 2035. Next on the list of highlights is Grace. This CPU designed by Nvidia has all the computing requirements which is required for AI supercomputing that analyzing enormous data sets. So the next announcement was for Nvidia's Omniverse Enterprise. This makes it possible for 3D production teams, which are often large and diverse in skills and geographically dispersed, to work seamlessly together on complex projects. With Omniverse, CGI artists, game developers, designers, artists and reviewers can work simultaneously in a virtual world from anywhere and on any device. Their next announcement was Jarvis. Nice little wordplay there, Nvidia. Nvidia claimed that their Jarvis is highly accurate when it comes to automatic speech recognition as well as superhuman language understanding. It also offers real-time translations for multiple languages and new text-to-speech capabilities to create expressive conversational AI agents. So the last announcement, but definitely not the least, was ALPS. This is in collaboration with Swiss National Supercomputing Center and Hewlett Packard Enterprise. This is touted to be the world's most powerful AI capable supercomputer, and this will be available by 2023. So those were all the highlights from GTC 2021 day 1. Please go to analyticsindiamag.com for more updates from GTC 2021 as they roll out. Moving on to our next story. Our next story is about artificial intelligence in air combat. This is in continuation with the story that we covered in the last episode about Air Force Chief saying that they are going to use artificial intelligence in a huge quantity in Air Force in India. So AIF Chief RKS Bhaduria's comments about implementing artificial intelligence in AIF's combat strategy has raised a lot of questions, and people are theorizing how it could work and how IAF could gain from the use of artificial intelligence in air combat. So AI for IAF missions is very tricky subject, as we have discussed time and again that autonomous weapons are not at a stage where they can be greenlit without any human intervention, and the data sets that we have are biased and they can backfire as quickly as they are being deployed. So the other thing that IAF can use are the drones that are completely autonomously run by artificial intelligence. We have covered that they are very successful and the Australian government have already started experimenting with them. It can increase the standoff imaging and extended range of communication for IAF. Artificial intelligence will be a huge bonus for the predictive maintenance of air assets. Artificial intelligence can be used for logistics and keeping track of how old or how much depreciated a particular asset has become. So in conclusion, there are a few issues with deploying artificial intelligence in the Indian Air Force. First and foremost being there is a need for unbiased data to train and test such combat systems, and it is going to be one hell of a task. Secondly, the cyber security system of India is not as advanced as various other countries, and it can easily be attacked by various other governments or terrorist organizations and can be misused. So first and foremost, there should be a robust cyber security system in place before deploying artificial intelligence in the Air Force. And finally, the question is that is the defense acquisition procedures adequate to allow AI based solution to be inducted, or whether these procurement procedures too are going to be changed by artificial intelligence for good. So moving on to the last story of our day. The last story is that in the Google versus Oracle fight, API developers have won. Oracle, which owns Java, accused Google of illegally copying more than 11,000 lines of Java API code to develop Android, but the ruling has been in favor of Google. So long story short, Google made the developers write millions of lines of new code in order to develop their brand new Android systems. However, back then programmers were more familiar with Java, and since Google wanted these programmers to transition quickly, they also copied roughly 11,500 lines of code from Java SE program for building an API. Open sourcing and its licensing is a tricky area for organizations. But this decision is in favor of all the developers of the world, because if the oracles of this world start charging for the chunks of API code sits on, it leaves the developer ecosystem flummoxed whether to proceed with certain widely available tools or build everything from scratch. And Google rightly argued with the court about the repercussions of deviating from the standard practices in this open source ecosystem. Google did argue that developers can use Android as a platform to build million-dollar applications. So this is a tightrope to walk for courts as well. Hence, they cannot risk collapsing the whole software ecosystem by curbing developers' freedom to innovate over open source tools and building on top of that. So this is a good news for every developer, and Google's chief legal officer has said that this ruling has provided legal certainty for the next gen developers, and he also believes that innovations happens by standing on each other's shoulders, and the idea of fair use is beneficial for everyone in this industry. So you can use the open source tools that are available for everyone rather than building everything from scratch. So that's about it. Those were all the stories that I have for you today. Please read these stories in their entirety. I highly appreciate it. And as always, click on that subscribe button and ring that notification bell so that you never miss any other update from Analytics India magazine, cause we bring you videos every Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday at 4 p.m.